Welcome to the Gray Matters podcast, where we confront issues facing coaches and leaders in all areas. We live between the binary and nothing is black or white. It's all shades of gray.
We're your hosts, Glenn Revell and Tim Kettenring. We look forward to sharing these conversations with you.
All right, y'all, here we are, episode one of the Gray Matters podcast. Glenn Revell and Tim Kettenring coming at you. We just want to do a little intro episode today, kind of let y'all know, man, who are these people? Why should we listen to them? If we should listen to them at all? What's their background? What kind of inspired us to get here? You can hear Tim snickering in the background. Y'all will be the judges of if we have anything worthwhile to say as this thing kind of continues and grows. It's in its infancy right now, but podcast one, episode one, just an intro into who me and Tim are and what we hope this podcast is and evolves and kind of turns into. I am a former traditional strength and conditioning coach turned educator. I say turned educator. I think coaches are educators when you look at what we do and how things work, but played collegiate football, had a brief career in the Arena Football League, and then as people would kind of assume most athletes do, got into coaching just because my strength and conditioning coach, specifically in college, was really impactful for me. And he took time out of his day to invest in me as a person. And that was a gift that I wanted to pay forward to other individuals that wanted to spend time getting better at their craft, right? Whether it was sports, whether it was a Gen Pop person that just wanted to be healthier, I wanted to do that for them. And as I kind of went on this journey of personal growth and development, I realized that I had put myself in this box of being a coach, of being an athlete, and my worth. And I think this is something a lot of high performers struggle with or have thoughts about is like my intrinsic value was directly correlated to my performance as a person, right? Like what I could do on the football field, what my pay stub said on my bank account, how many followers I had on my various social media accounts. And as I kind of went on this journey and figured out, like, man, I am more than I thought I was, and I do have redeeming qualities, and people really don't care what my job is, or that I was a strength coach, or that I coached at these various places. But what did draw people to me was just having a genuine approachability and likability and just wanting to help people wherever they are and kind of using strength and conditioning. That was my vehicle to develop capacities in individuals. And now that I do that, and now I do that in a kind of a couple different senses. I do a lot of learning and development work, some consulting, keynote speaking, team building, facilitation. So that's kind of where my career has been and what it's evolved into. And Tim and I, by happenstance, I guess, kind of ran across each other along the way as I was in one of my many career transitions, I guess, going from coaching in the athletic sector to looking at coaching in the tactical space. I ran across Tim on a podcast and just reached out to him, and now here we are a couple years later. And oddly enough, Tim and I played college football against each other, unbeknownst to either of us. So that's kind of where we are. But I'm gonna let Tim jump in here and like give his little intro about himself, and we're gonna go from there.
Yeah, and so like my background's pretty similar. You know, grew up playing sports, and I was actually lucky that even in the late '90s to be at a high school in the Panhandle of Texas where we had two qualified strength and conditioning coaches, and they taught me the value of obviously like hard work, which is cliche, but also like they taught me that I could outperform my size because I'm not a big guy. And when I realized that, my potential was a lot greater than I realized, then, I was able to, play football in college, which, I didn't think was possible going into high school. And so I knew pretty early on that I wanted to go into coaching and specifically like into strength and conditioning. And after playing in college, like I had no idea what that path was supposed to look like. Because even though I had a strength coach at the school I went to, he was also our defensive coordinator. So, there wasn't a whole lot in terms of guidance. So I kind of had to stumble my way through the first like 5 years of my coaching career, coaching at the high school level, coaching football and track, and then kind of working my way into S&C. And once I did, I realized kind of like, oh, this is I'm kind of going about this the wrong way. So went into the private sector for a little bit, and then finally made my way into collegiate strength and conditioning, where I spent 8 years, 1 year at the Division I level, and then 7 years at an NAIA school, and then spent the last 3 years working in professional rugby, which was phenomenal. And now spend most of my time coaching in the private sector, consulting, and providing education for coaches. And I think kind of like one of my core values, and really like the reason that I got into coaching, is I didn't have like really influential, other than my two strength coaches in high school. Like I didn't have really strong mentors, and part of that may have been that I just wasn't open to mentorship. But I made a lot of mistakes, and this goes into my coaching career as well, and just to this day, to be honest with you. And so I want to be able to make meaning out of some of those situations and help, maybe not necessarily help prevent other people from making the same mistakes, because I don't know that they're necessarily preventable. But I definitely want to help people navigate similar situations. And so that's kind of what this podcast means to me, being able to draw on those experiences, both, positive and potentially adverse, and be able to give people tools to navigate things that they're going through, whether that's professionally or personally or otherwise.
Yeah. Um, One thing you said that really stuck out to me, which is very much my kind of story as an athlete too, was like when people ask me what kind of athlete I was, I say, "Oh, I outworked my talent level." Right?
100%.
Or
100%.
everyone that's I don't I'm not say everyone, but a lot of people. I remember when my professional sports career was coming to a close because my head coach called me and he did not renew my contract. And in the conversation, he said, "Hey, Glenn, thanks for being a team guy." And if you know anything about
It's such a
sports,
such a backhanded compliment.
yeah, when you're a team guy, what that
Yeah.
means is this like, hey, you can put me in the professional setting, you could put me in front of a camera, I could do any media appearance you needed me to. Right? I could interact with fans, I could interact with ownership, with stakeholders. The only thing I couldn't do was apparently play football worth a damn because I didn't do a good enough
Yeah.
job to stay on the team. But they sure did send me out into the public a lot, right? And in the college world, you're the
Yep.
kid that always gets the team's GPA up, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I
that's
was
man,
I
that's
was not
probably
that kid, to be fair.
that's funny.
I was
All
I was
right.
bringing the team GPA down.
No, oh my gosh. So that was when I
Yeah,
realized,
a little bit of an underperformer.
yeah, but right. So I think a lot of strength coaches fall into that mold too. And I heard a great quote one time, and it said, the best coaches are mediocre athletes that tried like hell to get better because they used every technique they could possibly find or learn or think of to make themselves better at their craft, which is why a lot of times when you see high performing athletes get into coaching, they're not successful at it because they can innately
Right.
do things and they don't know how to explain that to other people. But
Right.
back to your point, because what this podcast is really about, and you said it, and what strength and conditioning is about dealing with people, right? Dealing with your athletes, dealing with your coaches, all the things that they go through, all the administrators that you work with.
Dealing
And
with
to your
yourself.
point, yeah, right? And you said, man, I would love, basically, what you said was, while we may not be able to alleviate problems that are happening in your life, please let this podcast be an opportunity to learn from the scars that we have so you don't have to get them,
Yep.
right? Like
And
you
and
could
and
learn
even then,
vicariously through our mistakes.
yeah, exactly. And even if you are in a situation where you're going through similar things that we went through, hopefully we can provide you with guidance, tools, insights to help you get through those things more constructively than we did. And that's kind of like what gray matters means, not only to us, but just like in general. And, we think that these kinds of topics are starting to come more to the forefront on social media, on other podcasts, but they're never really like directly addressed. And this could be things like career transitions. It could be things like, hey, I'm a staff of one. I don't have a mentor, but I need to learn. I need better people skills. I need to learn how to respond to athletes better instead of reacting. I have anxiety and depression. How do I manage my low days and my coaching career? And how do I manage my relationships so that those kinds of things don't affect them in the way that they have in the past. Um, and also kind of like many conversations in coaching, whether they're on social media or they're at clinics and conferences, they tend to just be surface level, and they tend to lean more either to the technical, or maybe it's to you get a little personal but not too much, because no one wants to be too uncomfortable in those settings, or period. But we want to kind of confront some of those things, the effect that a coaching career can have on a marriage, or what it really means to go from being an athlete to being a coach. And even though they may occupy the same physical space, it's not the same thing at all. Like, it's not even remotely close. And I think, you alluded to it earlier, like when you're an athlete and you are the kind of athlete who generally like outplays their potential, you just kind of gravitate to coaching, right? Because you have to approach your sport from a much more like intellectual, not intellectual in terms of like, oh, I'm smarter than everyone in the field. More so, it's just like you just have to prepare differently, and that a lot of that goes into whether that's film study or meetings, or and then on the physical side, like you got to spend more time in the weight room. You have to spend more time in the field. You just do, because otherwise you can't compete. And, I think many coaches, when they transition out of their playing career, they still hold on to that identity. And I don't necessarily know that it serves them well. Now, I don't know if it's avoidable or not. It could not, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just something that you have to go through and you can't get around. So, but we want to kind of talk about those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think uh, this is probably not a space. You might find resolution here, but you'll probably find a lot of it depends. And I'm working on that, or we're going through that, because a lot of times things aren't yes or no, right? Or it does depend. Or if people like me, Tim, you start having the conversations about, am I doing this because I don't know what else to do? Like, I don't actually haven't taken the time to dig around inside myself and figure out like what my purpose is and what my passion is, and this is just something I've already done, and there's
And why those two
opportunity,
things are
right?
different.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, man, if I leave coaching, do I throw away everything that I just worked for, right? And it's like, hopefully by Tim and I, and if we have guests on the show that like share their experiences, can just kind of create that space for you in your mind or wherever you interact with us or other people in your life to have those conversations and like dwell on those things a little bit and bring a little bit of levity, bring a little bit of clarity to those kinds of things.
Yeah, for sure. We look forward to sharing all this with you guys. And as always, every podcast, leave a review, share it with a friend, all the things. We'll see you guys next time.
This episode of the Gray Matters podcast is brought to you in part by Revelation Facilitation, building teams based on values and purpose. Visit us online at revelationfacilitation.com.
It's also brought to you by Maverick Human Performance, where we empower coaches to build adaptable systems to navigate the complexities of athletic development. Find out more at maverickhumanperformance.com.